Holy crap, Pokemon Go has become a monster hit. Immediately, it became the biggest thing in the mobile market all before it had been released outside of the US. It obliterated several mobile gaming records, sent Nintendo's stock soaring to historic heights, and got new Pokemon movies promptly greenlit. Within days, every restaurant and politician was jumping on the bandwagon or denouncing it. Not bad for a game that Nintendo didn't even make. Yeah, try and find their name. And while Nintendo owns 1/3 of the Pokemon Company, they stand to make only 10 to 13% total revenue off of Pokemon Go. Apple, Google, Niantic, and the Pokemon Company are the ones making the most money off this massive, ballooning success that looks to already be deflating. In fact, after the dust settles, Nintendo might not be all that much better off. But I'm not here to break down Nintendo's financials or really even talk about Pokemon Go. I think it's great. I've had a lot of fun with Pokemon Go, at least when I'm able to connect to Seattle's network before my battery dies. But I cannot be the only one constantly fighting the urge to throw my phone down on the sidewalk and scream, how the hell has there never been a Pokemon Snap 2? And is this the closest we're ever gonna get? I know there's barely a connection between the two, and this is a flimsy excuse at best to bring up Pokemon Snap, but I don't care. I've wanted to talk about this game for years, and this seems like a good time because I'm worried it may be the last. Pokemon Snap is nearing its 20th birthday, and in spite of Pokemon's enduring colossal popularity and Nintendo's penchant for producing hardware with actual built-in cameras, Pokemon Snap has never seen a sequel or really its equal. It's not like it was some kind of flawless masterpiece. If anything, it's more a proof of concept just begging for expansion. They should make a sequel to Pokemon Snap. I can even show you how they can make a sequel to Pokemon Snap, but at this point, I've lost hope that they will ever make a sequel to Pokemon Snap. Let's start with a refresher. Pokemon Snap was developed by HAL Laboratory and published by Nintendo, but the opening displays a third name, Jack and Beans, which ain't no development team I've ever heard of. That's because Pokemon Snap was in its earliest iteration Jack and the Beanstalk, a game for the Japanese-only N64 disc-based add-on and commercial flop the N64 DD. Taking their namesake from the game, Jack and Beans were a team of non-industry creatives handpicked by top brass at Nintendo and overseen by HAL Laboratory. Not much is known about Jack and the Beanstalk, except it was pitched as a game that would have utilized the full extent of the disk drive's unique features through non-traditional simulation-style gameplay, similar to another ill-fated DD game, Cabbage. Yes, at one point, Shigeru Miyamoto was making a game called Cabbage. Anyway, the decision to insert the Pokemon license in the Jack and the Beanstalk came from a need to give players greater motivation to photograph creatures, tying perfectly into the "gotta catch 'em all" slogan of the earlier games. Photography may be the only feature to remain from the original concept. It is speculated that other cut concepts were repurposed in Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, which began as an N64 DD game, and the also ill-fated Earthbound 64. HAL Laboratories completed the game as Pokemon Snap and released it in North America and Japan in 1999 and the following year in the PAL regions. The game became a million seller thanks in part to the burgeoning Pokemon franchise and a partnership with Blockbuster video stores where players could bring in carts and print out pictures at special kiosks. In the summer of '99, it was the most rented game at Blockbuster. But despite years of fan outcry, Pokemon Snap has never seen a sequel. It boggles the mind because, let's be real, your first thought when seeing the Wii U was, oh, this is the system Pokemon Snap 2 was made for. And yet, here we are, less than a year away from the NX and presumably the end of the Wii U. Onto the game itself. Snap is an amazing spin-off and a great game for two reasons. The first and most obvious reason is taking pictures of Pokemon. Beating Pokemon Stadium to the punch by a few weeks, Snap was the first time the world got to see Pokemon rendered in 3D, and whether standing, sleeping, rolling, swimming, frolicking, or flying, they look great and are a joy to photograph. Restricted to the confines of the all-terrain 0-1, HAL gets the most out of Snap's on-rail levels. In order to get the best pictures, you'll need to be quick on your feet and observant of where Pokemon appear in each level and know their movements. Levels also have their share of secrets and puzzles, like figuring out how to draw out all three of these Poliwag, evolving Staryu into Starmie, using Pikachu to hatch an egg. The obvious problem here is the limited amount of content. Snap only features 63 Pokemon. Wait, 63? Is that right? I mean, it's the N64. Like, they couldn't have just squeezed in one more? Really? Alright. 63 Pokemon spread across 7 levels, and despite being packed with secrets, levels are pretty short. The novelty runs out quickly, levels become a known quantity after only a few attempts. And while the Pokemon are well animated and voiced, levels are occasionally drab looking and feature a few too many large empty sections. These are obvious areas for improvement. The second and more understated thing that makes me excited about a Pokemon Snap 2 is Professor Oak. You are allotted 60 pictures per ride, which is more than enough film. And while you're free to stash every last picture of Pikachu in your personal collection, you can submit only one picture per Pokemon to Professor Oak. This is the often overlooked brilliance of this game, because your overall score and often your progress comes down to his judgment. Pokemon Snap is not a game about getting good pictures, but doing right by Oak. He is a stickler for framing, but his definition of center of frame is actually quite loose. He prefers Pokemon to fill the frame, but it's typically better to catch them while eating or posing or grouped together with other Pokemon. His criteria are unpredictable and at times feel arbitrary, like, are you serious? That's 3 Ditto and one of them stretching! It's so adorable! What's wrong with you? But trying to get into his head when making a Sophie's choice between which Slowpoke I submit can be more stressful than taking the pictures in the first place. This is the part that a Pokemon Snap sequel could really explore. Different judges with different personalities and criteria for what they think constitutes a good picture. I mean, look, Pokemon is all about gyms and gym leaders, right? Different islands with different professors seems like a no-brainer, because this duality of getting good pictures but then having to choose only a handful is the true core of Pokemon Snap, besides the fact that Pokemon are cute. And the idea of multiple islands opens up the possibility for more variation, and you'll need it too. The on-rails stuff does get old pretty quickly, so how about a mix of on-rails and open-world segments? You gotta have your token rivers and waterfalls, but what about vast jungles and forests to explore on foot? Instead of trying to catch them as you stroll by, what about the challenge of trying to get close to a Pokemon without disturbing it? Break off a couple pieces of that Breath of the Wild tech, or hell, just make the whole game open world. I'm starting to get a little carried away with the armchair developing here, so let me wrap this up. While a straight-ahead sequel to Pokemon Snap seems more unlikely by the day, maybe Nintendo and the Pokemon Company have something way more creative in the works. And that's awesome. Like Snap, Go is a great idea that could be greatly built upon. In a perfect world, we'd have sequels to both, but the times have changed, and maybe the moment has passed. Franchise producer and director Junichi Masuda has been lukewarm or outright cold on the prospect of a new Pokemon Snap, open to the idea only if it came with serious innovation to make it relevant. Nintendo, on the other hand, has hung their hat on thinking outside of the box, and Pokemon Go's earth-shattering success can only reinforce that mentality. Even if neither Nintendo or the Pokemon Company themselves developed Go, it seems to align with their MO. But it's still hard to accept that Pokemon Snap is a perfect rendering of this idea in light of the game's shortcomings, and when they've seemingly not even tried a sequel, much less a $5 digital-only release or a free-to-start game a la Picross or Shuffle. I'll concede that thanks to smartphones, photography is no longer a novel concept, but does taking pictures of full 3-dimensional Pokemon ever go out of style? And since when were Nintendo and the Pokemon Company above rehashing or milking their franchises? I'm sure no matter what, we're gonna get something great, but it would still be a damn shame if the world never saw a sequel to Pokemon Snap. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe and say something nice in the comments. Check out our other videos, our live channel, and our Instagram account too. Stop Skeletons from Fighting is a Patreon-supported show. Super special thanks to every one of our supporters. If you'd like to see your name here, click the logo and give what you can. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.